I am now attempting to go live on YouTube Shorts for the very first time. Let's see how this works. It's going to be weird. It's going to be interesting. I hope it works. So let's see. Let's see what happens here. Oh, I'm live. Let's see.
When the process is happening, everything is just...
Yeah, maybe I should mute that. I don't want to see ads. Oh, I am live on Shorts. There it is. That is insane. What's up, Shorts people? What's up, Shorts feed? Oh, this is crazy. Okay. So I'm doing this because I am testing a new way of streaming live here. It's something that I've been trying to fool around with and figure out now for the last month. And it's just in hopes of gathering a new audience, if possible. And I'm going to only do so whenever I do like major reviews on stuff, like whether it's a movie review or something that I binge watched on streaming and all that. So again, it's up to you as an audience whether you prefer to watch me on the regular format or the shorts format, the vertical format. And since this is my first time here, I'm pretty sure it's very possible and there's a potential to get new viewers and new commenters in the chat. So we'll just see what happens. But as I do that, I wanted to quickly talk about the new movie that came out this week, Civil War. So hold on one second. I just want to check something real quick. Hold, please. Oh, shoot. What the hell? All right. So the new movie that came out this week is Civil War. Alex Garland, written and directed by Alex Garland. I've mentioned before in the past that I am a huge fan of Alex Garland. Ever since I saw Ex Machina for the very first time, I knew that this was a director that I was really going to keep my eye out on. And I haven't been really disappointed with anything that he's put out there, whether it was Annihilation, even the last movie he put out before Civil War, Men, I really enjoyed. I thought that was a really well done movie. Very interesting story. And a lot of his movies that he has directed are very, with a lack of a better way to put it, ungrounded. So it's very, it deals a lot with maybe sometimes supernatural things or space. It's very, or AI in the case of Ex Machina. And it does a lot with science fiction and, you know, kind of weird ways of storytelling. It's almost, he's like a perfect A24 director because he really goes out there as far as the stories he's telling, as far as everything that he's putting out. You know, I kind of put him along the same lines of like Ari Aster or Robert Eggers when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling. Now, what's interesting about him is that when he writes movies, because he is a writer to start, he wrote novels, still does, I guess, and he writes screenplays. You know, he wrote and collaborated with Danny Boyle for 28 Days Later. So he wrote the script for that. He also wrote the script for another Danny Boyle movie called, I believe it was called Sunrise, was it? A movie that I watched recently that I thought was really, really good. An underrated sci-fi movie that I highly recommend to everybody. So when he announced that he was, you know, quote unquote, retiring from directing, I think a lot of people misunderstood and took into account thinking that he was going to retire from movie making overall, but he's not. You know, he's just not going to be directing any movies in the next foreseeable future. But he wants to focus on writing, which sounds good and makes a lot of sense. And knowing his line of work, I think he excels in writing, and I think he should still continue doing that. So, of course, all of this came out right before Civil War came out, his new movie that's coming out this week. And I myself is curious, okay, what kind of movie are we going to get here? Because with Men, it was one of those movies that was really way out there. And I think for some, especially those who are fans of Alex Garland's work, it was not a favorite for a lot of people. It was a little bit different. He messed around and played around with a lot of different supernatural elements. But what he likes to do is that he always likes to center his stories around important messages as well. It's up to you to kind of interpret that as you wish, as any way you would. In Men, it dealt a lot with male toxicity, and kind of how it affects women, and how, in particular, it affected this one woman going through all that stuff, being, uh, the way she was treated, the way that she was like kind of looked down upon, it just all the different experiences that she's had with men in general. And this one movie, and the one place of town that she was in, she encountered basically all those stereotypical toxic men that she's dealt with in her life, while herself, you know, had some experiences with a particular guy, which kind of forced her into this kind of retreat that she went on. It's a very deep story, very depressing story, and the ending alone was just way out there. It was just so bizarre. And in a way, it like I said, I put him along the same lines of like an Ari Aster in the way they decide to do their storytelling. So when I go into Civil War, based off all the trailers that we've seen, Civil War looks a little bit more grounded. I wasn't expecting to see anything supernatural related. But I think a lot of people are going into this movie thinking that it's going to really speak highly about our political climate of the time, and this is his way of kind of telling a story about that. One of the things I'll say off the bat is that this is not that kind of movie. If you're going into this movie expecting a political movie, expecting a certain side to be spoken about more, or if you're looking to politicize anything from this movie, this is not the movie for that. And you're going to be basically wasting your time if that's what you're looking for in this movie. This is a more grounded movie. This is probably one of the most grounded and straightforward movies that Alex Garland has ever written and directed. And if this is the last movie that he's going to be directing for some time, then I think this is one of the perfect movies to kind of hang your hat on, as I'm pushing directing aside, and that's it, and I'm out. And I think with this is a great way to do that. What's going on, Drawing Girl 01? Nice to see you here. So with that being said, and I'm trying to think of a way to kind of talk about this movie without spoiling so much, at least off the bat. But then, of course, I'm going to go into more spoiler stuff later on. The movie centers around a specific moment in I guess U.S. culture and history at the time. But this has nothing to do with what we're currently experiencing now. And the way I looked at it, and the way I think you should look at it if you're planning to watch this movie, is think of a war film. Films that come to mind is like Full Metal Jacket, Born on the 4th of July, that movie that Michael J. Fox did way back in the day with Sean Penn. These are those type of movies where you are following a group of people during a wartime situation. And the war itself takes a back seat. So anything political, anything, that is happening between two sides or multiple sides, that is all the MacGuffin for the real story that they're trying to portray out there. And the real story that they're portraying is really what's happening with this group of people who are experiencing all this stuff happening around them. In this case, it is a group of journalists. This, in its core, in its center, is a movie about journalism and those who go throughout these important moments in history, or they go throughout these war-driven countries or situations, and their job is to document and to capture everything that they're seeing happening around them. That's really what this movie is about. And when I talked about this movie with my friend Blake, who I do the Movie Time podcast with, and if you haven't had a chance to check that out, definitely check that out when you do have a chance. I just uploaded a new episode this morning where we went back and looked at all of Alex Garland's filmography for the movies that he's written and the movies that he's also directed. But this, in his filmography, he's never really written, nor has he really directed a movie that is so grounded and straightforward like this. And it was very refreshing to see, to be very honest with you. And it makes me wonder, I was like, oh, what else could he do that is not on the fantastical nature side of things, right? Because again, if you look at his filmography, Ex Machina was very AI driven, about AI and the relationship and morality between men and machine, right? Or men and computers, right? The morality behind all that. Now, a lot of people can say that this is something that is very poignant for today, because the whole discussion with AI and what's happening there, right? But then you can go to his next movie, Annihilation, more sci-fi driven, sci-fi based, right? You have an alien, not invasion, but I guess you could kind of see it as an invasion coming to Earth and exploring what exactly these aliens want and what they're trying to accomplish. Very sci-fi driven, very fantastical in a way. A movie like Men, like I said, also very, even though the messages in there are very poignant to a lot of society things today, it was done in a very fantastical way too. But this movie was just straight up, here are these group of journalists with this thing that's happening in the United States, and you're following them because all they want to do is document everything that's happening around them. And their main goal was to go over to DC and to have a chance to interview the president of the United States. Because according to them, they're saying that the president has not given any interviews or talking to any media for like 18 months or something like that, or ever since this conflict started happening in the United States. So there's these journalists who work for Reuters, who their mission was to get that first scoop, because it's getting dire out there, and they feel now's the time that the president should say something, should have a statement, something to go out to the public with, right? And that's basically what the gist of this movie is. Yeah. This is basically what is happening here, where you're following this group and saying, okay, what's going to happen to them because of everything that's happening around them. And the one thing that they don't do is they don't ever explain or tell you why the conflict is happening. Even though you get insights about, okay, there's this group from the West, which is basically a team up of California and Texas, called the Western Foundation or the Western something, right? You have a North Carolina coalition that is also in the mix of things. You have a Florida kind of coalition in there as well, right? So you have a lot of these internal conflicts happening in the United States. And that's all you really know. They don't tell you how it happened, why it started. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because this is just a scenario to put these group of people in, and you're following this group of people as they're documenting everything that's happening. A secondary thing you could say about this movie is that it also talks about the human condition and how humans are treated and treat each other based off of certain situations and conditions, right? Which is not new. Again, we've seen this happen before in other movies. Whenever there's like an apocalyptic movie, whether it's like, or a series like The Walking Dead, even when you go back and you look at 28 Days Later, Movies like that, they always explore that human element of it. How are humans treated? How do we take care of each other? Right? Especially when you have a country that is divided in more ways than one. More ways than one, right? You have Americans questioning other Americans as to what kind of an American are you, right? So it is very, very interesting overall. Angry old lady in the car put you on silence. Don't know what that is about, but no one's being silenced here. So, so I thought that was a very interesting way of telling a story like this. And it did remind me very much of, if you remember, or if you ever seen a movie like Full Metal Jacket. In a way, we're following these group of guys going through the Vietnam War. And it is very interesting to see all that happening through the eyes of those going through it. And it reminds me of the main Matthew Modine character. I believe it was Matthew Modine, right? Because even though he was a soldier, he was also kind of like a photographer or a reporter. And he was kind of chronicling a lot of stuff that happened around him. And it reminded me a lot of that, because you're getting a lot of that here. Shen, do you identify as black? I do not. I am not. I am mixed nationality, but I am not black. Star-Lord, what kind of American should an American be? That is not for me to say. But in this context of this movie, that is also something that is unclear. Because, again, you don't understand where this conflict originated from or how it all originated. Also, just to let anyone who's been watching this, I have two streams going on right now. I have the vertical stream going on, and I have the regular screen, the regular stream happening. So if you see me addressing certain people that you may not necessarily see in the chat, it's because they might be on a different feed. Just wanted to put that out there. But I think at the end of the day, you should be the type of American that basically cares for each other, right? Don't ask you what kind of American you are. Okay, I won't. But overall, the way this movie was formulated was so well done and so engaging. I felt very engaged from beginning to end. And I already know that this is not going to be a movie for everybody. I think, and I truly do feel from within me, that people are going to this movie thinking and expecting everything to be politicized. They're thinking and hoping that, or expecting that it's going to be a commentary on the political landscape that we're in right now. There are similarities, but at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with what this movie is going to be about. This movie, again, is about the group of journalists and them going through their journey to try to get a story and to document everything around them. And for that alone, I thought it was a very refreshing type of movie. It was very engaging. It's hard to say that I enjoyed the movie, because the subject matter and things that happen is not what I would call enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it was a very well done movie that I really appreciated. And the performances were so good all throughout. Kristen Dunst, I think this is one of the best performances that she's had in a very long time. And I'm not including or counting stuff like Spider-Man or whatever the case is. Like, I think one of the best movies she's ever done was Virgin Suicides way back in the day. Like, this reminded me of that type of performance. Kaylee Spaney, who I totally did not even recognize her for a while. And I was like, oh my God, this is Priscilla. Because I remember seeing her in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla as Priscilla Presley. She was fantastic in this movie. And it was nice to see her portray a different type of character, because like when I think of her name, when I hear about her, all I think about is Priscilla Presley. So it was really nice to see her outside of that. Um, One of the best character actors out there now, who I spoke about recently because he was in Dune 1 and then nowhere to be found again in Dune 2. But I really like this actor because he shows up a lot in the background, and he is one of those faces that you will recognize, but you may not necessarily know his name, or you won't really dive so deep into who that guy is. And I hate this because I don't know why they make it so difficult for me just to look up cast here. But hold on, give me 1 second. Stephen McKinley Henderson. You may not recognize the name, but you definitely will recognize the face. He was also extremely good in this movie. Very, very good in this movie. Nick Offerman, who played the president, was pretty good, even though it was a very small role. And we do see Jesse Plemons, who is also in here. And he does his typical Jesse Plemons thing, where he is very scary. If you remember the trailer, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Very, eerie. You don't know exactly what he's thinking. Could be a borderline psychotic, but he is that type of person. Who also happens to be the husband of Kristen Dunst, right? But I think the performances were so good all throughout. The directing, it's Alex Garland. So I think this is probably one of his best shot films too. Great cinematography, great transitions. The one thing he does really well is he puts you in these tense moments where you're kind of gripping the sides of your seat, or you're like lean back and you're just very, very like tensed and anxious, and you feel a little bit of anxiety. So it was very, very well directed. And again, if you're familiar with his movies, then you're definitely going to appreciate this. But you're also going to notice how different it is from a lot of his other movies, which was, again, for me personally, very refreshing, extremely refreshing. And I really loved it. And I loved it so much, I gave it a 5 stars on Letterboxd. And of course, I hearted it because it definitely was a movie that I really, really liked. And I will say this is probably his best movie that he's ever directed. This is probably Alex Garland's best directed movie that he's ever had. So I won't be surprised if people are going to be talking about this movie for the next couple of weeks. I won't be surprised if somehow this movie comes up in some sort of consideration during the award season. I definitely won't be surprised if I hear Kristen Dunst's name or Kelly Spaney's name brought up with their association of this movie, because they should be, and they deserve to be in the conversation when that time comes around. But then we are very early in the year, so it is kind of hard to say what's going to happen when the rest of the year comes through with all the other movies that we're going to be seeing. So it's going to be very, very hard to say where they will stack up and where they will stand once we see all these other performances. But at the end of the day, I think them two did a great job, and they should be very, very highly regarded as great actresses in this film. And yeah, it was just overall a really great movie. Really great movie. Well done. And like I said, if this is to be Alex Garland's final directed movie, final movie that he's going to be directing, what a way to go. What a way to go. And maybe for me personally, I would be a little bit disappointed that if we can get an Alex Garland movie like this, what else could we have gotten after this? Right? But maybe this was like a big task for him to put together. something very, hard to do. Directing's not easy. And maybe he just prefers to just sit down and write. So if that's the case, then I think he should do whatever makes him feel better, and makes it so that his creative flow won't be disrupted, and he can do something nice. Or maybe he should do some collaborations. Maybe he should team up again with Danny Boyle. It'll be great to see that. Team up with, I don't know, an Ari Aster, or maybe team up with a Robert Eggers in the future. But if he used to go out here, again, great movie to do so. Star-Lord, I'm Cajun. Fight alligators on a daily basis just because, last. Even if you weren't kidding, I wouldn't put it past you. The Cajun sensation over there from Louisiana, Star-Lord. So yeah, so that's Civil War, Alex Garland. I'm not really gonna go into a lot of spoiler stuff here because I don't know. I'm gonna save that for my conversation with Blake about the movie. But I will say, if you're gonna be curious to know what happened with the president, or did they ever make it at the end? Yeah, they made it, and they got their scoop. But it's not the kind of scoop I think you're expecting them to get. But they got it, and I thought it ended in a way that was very well done. Very well done. And also at the same time, very bittersweet. So yeah. So that's what I'll say about that. All right. How's everyone doing out there? Everyone. Also, let me know if you're definitely planning on checking out Civil War this weekend. Be curious to hear everyone's thoughts about that stuff. Let's see here. All right. I think for now, I'm very curious. I wonder if I should stay streaming on Shorts. Maybe I will. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change. I'm going to do this. I'm going to change the title of the Shorts right now, because I'm not going to be talking about Civil War anymore, because I just did. But instead, I'm going to go into my thoughts on the latest episode of X-Men 97. Give me 1 second as I do that. I'm new to all this, so I do apologize for the dead air. All right. Just changed it. Bing, bang, boom. Bing, bang, boom. Bum, bum, bum. All right. So X-Men 97, episode 5. Oh, boy. That's why Gambit. Yeah. So do you really, Star-Lord, do you really have that Cajun accent? The whole Cher and ho ho ho. And I apologize if it sounds like I'm making fun. I'm not. It's just, I'm not familiar with it. Oh, that's awesome. I think that's great. I kind of like that accent. But in this episode, we get a whole lot of Gambit in here. So I'm going to say this straight up. X-Men 97, episode 5. Now, if you remember my thoughts on episode 4, I felt like it was kind of a weird episode. It was like a 2-for-1 where I felt like we had two small episodes in one. We had a story that centered more around Jubilee and the new guy on the team, who I think is eventually going to be Sunspot, right? I think that's who this character is going to be. And then we got another mini episode that really dealt more with Storm and her dealing with the lack of the loss of her powers and meeting Forge and that relationship that they have there together with them. So it was kind of a weird 2-for-1 where at times it felt filler, and then at other times they were talking about important story plots, but you have so many plots going on right now, just like the original show, that it was kind of hard to gauge where they were really trying to focus on in episode 4. So I just thought it was okay. For the most part, it was okay. Episode 5. Woo! Now this is what we're talking about right here. This episode was probably by far one of the best episodes of the series so far. And it mainly centered around Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit. Now, we already know that they've established that there is a potential love triangle happening between Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto, right? And this kind of goes off the rails in that aspect. The majority of the episode takes place on Genosha, which we also learn that is now recognized by the UN as a safe haven, as a country, especially for mutants, right? And you have basically Magneto with Rogue and Gambit going to visit Genosha to have a meeting with the group leading Genosha and coming up with what they should do and all that kind of stuff. Prior to that, we still have a fallout because of what happened with Jean Grey. So Cyclops is still trying to grieve and figure things out between his relationship with the real Jean and not the Madeline Pryor Jean or the Goblin Queen, who is now on Genosha, right? But it also, we come to find out that there's like a little thing happening between him and the real Jean, questioning of like, well, do you love me? I don't know if it's you that I love, this and that, you know, kind of like, I'm the real Jean, you should love me. And he's like, I love Jean, but I don't know if you're the Jean that I love, and all, you know. But he's also worried and thinking about his son, who he had to give to Bishop to save, and Bishop went off into the future and all. So he's grieving the loss of his son. He's grieving the loss of his love, even though she's still there, kind of. Right? So we have a little moment with the real Jean Grey trying to figure things out, you know, trying to figure out, are all of her memories real? Or if, you know, they're just implanted there. So it's very interesting to see her going through all this. And then she had a moment with Logan, with Wolverine, because of course that whole love affair is never going away. They're always going to be constantly reminding us about that. But then we also come to find out that Cyclops is still mentally communicating with Madeline Pryor. And I guess they're still having this thing with them. And Jean finds out, right? So Jean gets really upset about that. Almost like he's mentally cheating on her, right? And he tries to explain himself, and he's really like, look, I'm just worried about our son. And she technically is the mother of my son. And I was just checking in to make sure she's okay. And if she's doing well, you know, so there's always going to be the connection there. So I don't know where we're going as far as this love triangle is going. You have Cyclops who's in love with two versions of Jean Grey. You know, and that already alone is problematic. So there's nothing good that can come out of that, right? So we don't know where it's going to happen there, but that's definitely going to be something that's going to be explored. But the main focus of the story is happening on Genosha. You have Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto visiting. And I love this moment because as they're going there, we are seeing glimpses of other mutants that we are familiar with if you're familiar with X-Men, right? So during this whole time that they're there, we get to see the Dazzler hanging out over there. We got to see Multiple Man hanging out, dancing in the streets, multiplying himself over and over again. Part of the council or whatever the group there that's leading this area. You have Banshee, that's part of it. You have the White Queen, who's part of it. You have that guy who looks like, I forget what his name is, but he has like the big mutton chops, and he's dressed like this Victorian type guy, and all that. And then we get to see Nightcrawler pop up, which was so refreshing. I'm like, oh, Nightcrawler is here. And that was so much fun, and he was interacting with Gambit and Rogue. And like, oh my God, it's been a long time. And good to see you're doing well. And that you're not, we're not here fighting priests and all that. Because if you remember the last time that they had interacted together, they were fighting off of like these crazy murderous priests that, Nightcrawler was kind of associated with and all. So I thought it was funny, though, a nice little callback to all of that, which was a lot of fun to see, and just to hear them communicate with everyone. So they're all having a good time, and they're trying to figure out, okay, who should be leading and who should be kind of representing the mutant community here on Genosha now that it's being recognized by the UN. And they said, well, Magneto should be, right? And that seems to be the conversation happening. And it's all about this thing about Charles chose you to take over the X-Men because he trusts you, right? And he trusts that you're going to do whatever it takes for you to take care of the mutant populace, to take care of the mutant community. And now he has to figure out, is this really what he wants to do? Right? Because he's always been a fighter. He's always been one of those like crusaders for the mutant cause. But he never really was like, I guess, really thought about himself as a leader as a whole, right? Yeah, he wanted to lead like his own group and to fight off against the humans and all that. But to properly represent the mutant nation, that's something that he had to think about. And if he's going to do it, he wants to do it right. Right? So he thinks that in order to do it right, if he's going to be the quote unquote king, he needs a queen. And he's going to ask Rogue to be his queen. Right? Separately, Nightcrawler, in his conversations with Gambit, can sense that Gambit is kind of depressed. And he's still love-stricken with Rogue. And Nightcrawler's basically telling him, you just gotta speak your mind. You just gotta like go up to her, tell her your feelings, and just marry her already. Because you only get a one shot at these things. And you might as well do it. And Gambit, he's like trying to put up a front. It's like, I am not one to be tied down, and and I don't know if I'm doing the right accent. Star-Lord would tell me. He's like, I'm a loner or a rebel, daddy. But then he thinks about it, and he's like, you know what? Maybe Nightcrawler's onto something here. Maybe I need to put myself out there. And so in order to do so, he like dresses up. He got his white tuxedo, and he's looking all dapper and all that. And then Rogue shows up, and he's like, oh, now is my chance, Cher. I'm going to tell you my feelings. Right? And Rogue's like, well, I got to tell you something too. So she finally spills the beans and tells him the entire history that she has with Magneto. And basically tells him that she's being asked to be his queen. Now, of course, Gambit's not happy about this. Right? He's like, oh, what are you going to do? Are you going to do it? And she's like, I don't know, but I do believe in this cause. And if it's going to help our mutant community and our mutant representation, then I think it's up to me to ensure that we can do that. And basically what Gambit's trying to ask her is like, are you really in love with Magneto to be his queen. You know, because love is just not surface level. It goes deeper than that. And Rogue thinks, you know, she still thinks that she has to do what she has to do. Right? So, of course, it breaks Gambit's heart. And it's like, well, we could be friends and all that stuff. But I don't want to just be friends. I want to sleep with you and da-da-da. So, Rogue shows up at this big gala event, all dressed to the nines, dances with Magneto, and of course, Gambit seeing this for the first time and seeing that they can touch each other without any problems, right? And he's like, oh, shit, my heart, oh. And I know I'm doing a really bad accent here. I know. I apologize, Star-Lord. I'm so sorry. And this part of the episode was very sexual in nature, because the way Magneto and Rogue were dancing, it was way too sexy for a kid's cartoon. It felt like what you would see like on a regular TV show. So it was really crazy to see it all happening. But anyway, so they decide to kiss, right? They make out. And then boom, it hits Rogue immediately. You know what? Gambit was right. Love is more than just this. It comes from deep inside. And I can feel that this is not going to work. Magneto's like, what? You're going to... What? I'm Magneto. You can touch me. He doesn't say all that, but you could tell that what he's thinking, right? And then while all this was happening, right, Clone Jean, who's just there hanging out, she just got, I guess, caught on the mental cheating. So she's, you know, she's trying to deal with it too. She's seeing this romance budding with Magneto and Rogue. She decides to take a breather, goes outside. And she basically was like, you know, trying to like take it all in. What's up, Caden? You want a like, sub, or both? Why not both? But only if you want to. I'm not asking you to do it just to do it. If you like what I'm doing here and you want to see more of that, then you like it and sub if you want to see more. If you don't, perfectly fine too. And that is my honest feeling. But thank you for asking. And nice to have you here. And thanks for chiming in. And then out of nowhere, Cable shows up. And Cable's like running through the streets, like, everybody needs to leave. Everybody needs to run. Blah, blah, blah. Frantic. And he sees Jean, Madeline Pryor, not the real Jean. And it's like, you got to get everyone out of here. And she's like, why? Like, shit's about to hit the fan. Well, he doesn't say all that, but basically that's what he's saying. It's like, danger's coming. And then she takes a moment, looks at his face. It's like, I recognize those eyes. Oh my God, it's Nathan, my son. You're all grown. I'm so happy you survived and things worked out. And Cable's like, uh-oh, because I guess he's on the timer. So now he's being zapped back to the future, right? And as he's being zapped, he's like, I'm sorry, mommy. Like that. Again, not exactly, but you get the gist of what's happening. So the minute he gets zapped back to the future, she realizes, oh, that's my son. He's like, oh, that's my mom. Well, he knew that. And Rogue just basically dissed Magneto in the middle of the dance floor. Bam! Shit gets fucked up. And this is like extinction, right? Level event. Where you have all these people getting wiped out all of a sudden. Rogue is trapped under a rock. She's wondering what's happening. Magneto's like dusting himself off, saying, what the fuck's going on? And now you see in the distance a three-headed, gigantic kaiju sentinel with a body of what looks like a cockroach. A giant cockroach. And this thing is going to town. It's like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, all that stuff. So you have people like catching the business here, catching the business there, and they're like, we got to do something about this. Right? So Gambit sees his opportunity. He's like, we got to go. We got to go, Shed. So he teams up with Rogue, and they're trying to like save people, and all at the same time trying to figure out what's happening with these guys. And then you have Magneto. It's like, oh, that's it. Now on my watch, brother. Right? Because not only is this Sentinel beast wrecking shop, but you also have a lot of these other Sentinels now dropping in on the ground. Kind of like doing their doing their shit. And they're not even capturing people. It looks like they're just trying to exterminate them. And it's not just mutants. Whoever they see, they're vaporizing. There's this one moment where you see the woman, the head of the UN, running with groups of people. It's like, this way, we got to make it to the sacred forest or whatever the case is. And zap, 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 zap. Holy shit. Right? And we don't know she got zapped herself. Because we don't get shown any of that. Oh, Star-Lord, I'm glad I'm getting close. I'm getting closer. I think it's like with practice, I'll get it, right? So you have so much craziness going on. You have Rogue fighting the Sentinels that are on the streets. You have Gambit fighting the Sentinels on the street. Great action. Great stuff happening, right? Everyone else is trying to help in and chip in, but you don't get to see any of the other X-Men there. Because this is all happening really quickly, and they have to act now, right? And at this point, I forget what happened. Well, I forgot what happened to Rogue. I think she got caught up trying to fight these other Sentinels on the ground level. And Remy, Gambit himself, is on his motorcycle, and he sees an opportunity to take this kaiju down, right? And mind you, Magneto is still fighting left and right. This kaiju is like really homing down on Magneto. His main target is Magneto. And Magneto is trying to save everyone around him. You got the Warlocks involved in there that he's trying to save and everything. Right? And there's this one moment where they shoot this like mega beam. Bam! And Magneto's just like everything he can do to try to stop it. Right? Everything he can do. And Rogue is like, oh no, he's going to die or something bad's going to happen and I need to help. And Magneto's like, nope. Kind of like Kevin Costner with Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. When Henry Cavill is like, Kevin had to go rescue the dog, the stupid dog that didn't want to come out of the car. And he had to go, come on, doggy, get the hell out of here. And then he gets his foot trapped. And Henry Cavill's like, oh no, I gotta save my dad. But then his dad doesn't want him to go because he doesn't want people to realize that he has the powers. So he basically tells him, no, stay there. I'll be fine. He gets whisked away in the tornado. And of course you have Henry Cavill, Clark, just like, daddy. In a way, this was kind of like that. Where you have Magneto holding off this mega beam. You got Leech on him. Right? He's trying to save these people, and he doesn't want Rogue to get hurt because, secretly he does love Rogue. So he encapsulates Rogue in this like cocoon, but she can see what's happening in the little window. Right? And big explosion. It looked like Magneto met his fate. And Rogue's like, no! I could have been a queen! Oh, she didn't say that. But all that was happening, and then Gambit saw his opportunity. So Gambit on his motorcycle is rolling up there. with his staff and his cards, and this is the best action I've ever seen Gambit involved in anything. He wasn't quick enough. They got him right on the side. Stabbed him right on the side. And we're like, shit. They got Gambit. And then, of course, the Sentinels, this three-headed kaiju is just like, stupid. What do you think you're doing? And it's like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Because remember, anything he touches, he can like transform his kinetic energy to. And with this thing in him now, he's like, now all of the kinetic energy, he's now pushing through the Sentinel, the giant kaiju, and you just see the entire thing, kinetic energy overflow. And he's just like, peace out, Chad. Big explosion. He's able to take down the giant kaiju. But at a cost. Because now, from what it appears, is that our favorite Raging Cajun is unfortunately dead. And the episode ends with him in the center of this giant crater. Rogue holding him. Very reminiscent to the death of Superman. If you remember that comic book, you saw Lois Lane holding Superman there on the ground. And she's like crying and touching his face. Magneto seems to be a little okay, but everything is focused and centered on this moment. And it fades to black with her saying, Remy, I can't feel you. Oh my God, the tears. Oh. What an episode. Because again, think about it. Rogue has the ability to touch anyone, and the powers transfer over to her, right? She absorbs the power of the person she touches. And that's one of the reasons why she could never be with Gambit, because whenever they tried, he would get sucked into her and he would like be lifeless. So for her to say that I can't feel you, meaning there's nothing there for me to feel, nothing there for me to absorb. Holy shit. Crazy. What an emotional roller coaster of a ride for this episode. And it was insane. And you knew something was going to go down because they did something in the background as kind of like a nod to the audience. Almost like, get ready. Things are about to go down. Because they showed the outside sky at one point during this whole celebration, during the gala. Right before Rogue showed up, right before, Madeline Pryor, so Cable. In the distance in the sky, you see an outline. That was the Watcher. And as we've learned through the comic books, through the animated shows, through What If, whenever the Watcher's there, he's there to observe a major event that's about to happen. A turning point to any story. He's always there to observe. So the minute you saw his outline show up, and I saw it, I was like, wait a minute, was that the Watcher? Uh-oh. Something's about to go down. And boy, did it ever. Wow. What an episode. 5-star episode this was. 5 freaking stars. Unbelievable. Unreal. Now, of course, the lingering questions is Magneto okay? Need to figure that out. Who really got hurt on Genosha during this event? Is the Dazzler okay? Is Nightcrawler okay? Is Banshee okay? Anyone that we saw, how is everyone? Is that the head of the UN, that lady, is she all right? But number one main question is, who did this? Who set up this attack? Who set up this thing? That is the big number one question. And I'm not going to spend my time here to kind of analyze or speculate right now, because I'm still reeling from the effects of what happened in this episode. And what an episode. Again, what an episode. It was so well done. So emotional at the end. Holy cow. And I've criticized, but it's a good criticism, that the dialogue is very fast. There's no breaks. I kind of made fun of the previous episode where it's just like, oh, by the way, call me Madeline Pryor. It just came out of nowhere, right? I kind of joked about that stuff. But the way they pace the dialogue at the end of this episode to really hone in on that emotional moment between Rogue and Gambit, that was so brilliantly done. Kudos to them for recognizing that this is something they had to do for that one moment. Very amazing way to end this episode. Really, really loved it. So yeah, episode 5 of X-Men 97. So far, this series has been must-watch TV every week for me. And I don't do that often for a lot of shows these days. But yeah, amazing, amazing stuff. Really good. Yeah. So if you watched it, if you are watching this on a replay or what have you, definitely let me know your thoughts on the episode. If you liked it as much as I did, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Entertaining, but also very emotional at the end. So good. So good. Whew. All right. What? Let's see. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just going to check to see if I got any notifications or anything. I'll play some checking the phone music. All right, well, all that's said and done. Let's see here. Just looking at some things. So I think now is a great time. I think right now I'm also going to bid adieu to the shorts feed. So anyone who has been watching or has watched on the shorts feed, thank you so much for tuning in. It's my first time doing it, so hopefully it was entertaining enough. If you want to follow the rest of the stream or check out the usual streams, check out the channel. You could see the full stream there and all that. So peace out, y'all. I'll see you again next time.